Emily thought her biggest fear was losing her family, but the truth was she'd already been living a lie. The man she called Dad wasn't who he claimed to be. And when Dr. Phill read that DNA test, the studio froze. A routine episode about family betrayal spirals into live chaos when one guest reveals a truth no one expected, not even Dr. Phill. Cameras roll, the audience gasps, and somewhere backstage, a forgotten man is waiting for his name to be called. The studio lights burned hotter than usual that morning. Emily sat on the left side of the stage, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. The cameras were rolling, the audience silent, waiting for Dr. Phill to open the envelope that sat between them like a ticking bomb. To most, it was just paper, but to Emily, it was the line between who she thought she was and who she might truly be. Dr. Phil's voice was calm, but carried that unmistakable edge of gravity. "Emily," he said, "these results are going to give us some answers today." Her father, Robert, shifted uneasily beside her. He was a tall man with tired eyes, the kind that carried years of work and worry. Her mother sat across the stage, tissues clutched in her trembling hands. The distance between them felt wider than the studio floor. It was years of unspoken things compacted into silence. Dr. Phill sliced open the envelope. The sound was small, but it might as well have been thunder. Emily's heartbeat pounded in her ears. Every camera zoomed in, every lens catching her face as Dr. Phil's eyes scanned the page. He took a slow breath. "These results," he said carefully, "don't just reveal a discrepancy. They reveal something much bigger." Robert's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice low, defensive. Dr. Phill turned toward Emily, holding the page. "It means," he said softly, "that the man sitting next to you is not your biological father." The air vanished. The audience gasped. Emily's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her mother began sobbing, whispering something inaudible. Robert looked at his wife, a stare filled with confusion and betrayal, before turning back toward Emily. "That can't be right," he said. "We did that test together, remember? This has to be a mistake." Dr. Phil's tone never wavered. "We ran a secondary verification with a professional lab," he explained. "The result is conclusive. There's a 99.99% probability that you and Robert are not biologically related." Emily's vision blurred. The lights seemed too bright, the applause signs frozen off. Her mind replayed birthdays, bedtime stories, scraped knees. Robert teaching her how to ride a bike. Robert walking her to school on her first day. Every memory screamed father. And yet, one piece of paper said stranger. Her voice cracked. "If he's not my dad," she whispered, "then who is?" That's when Dr. Phill turned the results card toward her. There, printed in black ink, was a name. She didn't recognize it. Her mother cried harder, covering her face. The name, Thomas Hall, meant nothing to Emily, but everything to her mother. Dr. Phill paused, giving the room space to breathe. "Emily," he said, "I need you to focus on what you're feeling right now. Shock, confusion, anger, they're all valid. But there's something deeper here. This isn't just about betrayal. This is about identity." Emily nodded slowly, tears running down her face. "It's like my whole life just disappeared." He leaned forward slightly, his voice lower. "The truth has a way of doing that," he said, "but also gives you the chance to rebuild something real." The cameras caught every word. The audience didn't move. Somewhere behind the stage curtain, producers exchanged looks because they already knew what came next. There was someone else in the building, someone who had been waiting quietly in a green room, holding on to a truth of his own. As Emily tried to steady her breath, Dr. Phill glanced toward the control room glass. The director gave a subtle nod. He knew the next moment would change everything. Emily had no idea that her real father was only a few doors away. What happens when the truth you've been searching for walks into the same room as the lie you've been living? 3 weeks before the cameras and the tears, Emily's life looked ordinary. She lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment outside Austin, worked at a dental clinic, and was engaged to a man named Ryan, a calm, logical type who believed every problem had a solution. That morning, Emily was just looking for a birth certificate. Instead, she found the envelope. It was wedged under a pile of old tax forms in her mother's dresser, pale yellow, unmarked, with one corner torn open. Inside were papers from a home DNA testing company. The top line read, Emily Monroe, relationship results. Her eyes scanned the page. The words didn't make sense at first, but there it was, clear, cruel, undeniable. Paternal relationship, not detected. Her hand trembled. Not detected, she whispered aloud, as if saying it might change it. Then she noticed something else, 2 names. Her mother's was there. The other, Robert's, had been crossed out. Emily's mind flashed through decades of family photos, birthdays, and father-daughter moments. Every one of them now felt counterfeit, like a movie she'd been cast in without reading the script. When her mother came home, Emily didn't wait. "What is this?" she demanded, holding up the paper. Her mother froze. The color drained from her face. "Emily, where did you get that?" "From your drawer." "Why would you hide it? What does this even mean?" There was a long pause. Her mother sat down slowly, hands shaking. "I never wanted you to find that," she said softly. Emily's anger cracked into disbelief. "So it's true?" Her mother's lips trembled. "I was going to tell you someday. I couldn't." Emily's voice rose. "Couldn't? You lied to me for 28 years. Her mother looked away, eyes brimming. "It was for your protection, Emily. Your father, your real father, wasn't someone I could trust back then. I thought I was doing what was best." The words echoed, but none of them landed. Protection? From what? From who? That night, Emily told Ryan everything. He sat quietly, trying to make sense of it. "You need real answers," he said finally. "You can't start a marriage not knowing who you are. Medical history, genetic stuff, this matters." He was right, but this wasn't about science anymore. It was about truth. Emily tried asking her mother again the next morning, but all she got were tears and guilt. "Please, just leave it alone," her mother begged. "It's in the past." But the past wasn't staying buried. 2 days later, Emily received an email from the DNA company. "We found one potential match. A man named Thomas Hall, 52 years old, living in Dallas. Shared 50 DNA probability. Paternal match, strong." She stared at the screen, heart racing. The name meant nothing, but it was the same one Dr. Phill would hold up weeks later. Ryan was the one who brought up the show. "If your mom won't talk," he said, "go to someone who can make her talk. You always say Dr. Phill gets people to tell the truth." Emily laughed it off at first, but 2 sleepless nights later, she sent the email. "I need help finding my real father," she wrote. The producers called the next morning. They asked for details. They asked for the names. They asked for the story. And when they heard about the DNA result, they told her something that made her heart stop. "Emily, our research team already located a man named Thomas Hall who fits your match report. He agreed to take a call." For a second, she couldn't breathe. "He what?" "He says he never knew anything about a daughter. He wants to come forward, but only if you're ready." Emily hung up, numb. She looked at the photo of Robert on her dresser, the man who had raised her, protected her, loved her, and whispered, "Dad, what did you not know?" The next morning, the producers confirmed the filming date. Emily didn't tell her parents. Not yet. She told herself she needed to hear it from the source, from the man who might hold the answers to every question she never thought to ask. And so, 3 weeks later, she sat under studio lights, waiting for that envelope to open. She thought she was there to prove her father wrong, but she was about to meet the man who'd been missing from her entire life. What if finding the truth meant tearing down the only family you've ever known? Thomas Hall sat alone in the green room, hands clasped together, thumbs tapping nervously. The hum of cameras, muffled voices, and distant applause filtered through the walls. His reflection in the mirror didn't look like a man about to meet his daughter. It looked like a man about to face his past. The producer's voice came through his earpiece. "Mr. Hall, thank you for doing this. Just stay ready. We'll call you soon." He nodded, but didn't respond. His throat was dry. On the small table in front of him lay a folded letter, creased for being opened and closed too many times. Inside was a photo he'd carried since 1996. A woman, smiling, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a green hospital blanket. He whispered to himself, "If that's really her, I missed her whole life." The door cracked open and a young production assistant peeked in. "You okay, Mr. Hall?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah, just trying to remember how to breathe." Back on stage, Dr. Phil's show was in full motion. Emily sat there, clutching tissues, her eyes red. She had no idea that just a few doors away, the man from the DNA results, the stranger whose name was printed beside hers, was fighting the urge to walk out. Thomas had almost backed out the night before. He'd driven 3 hours to the studio, parked, then sat in his car, staring at the entrance. What'd he even say? "Hi, I didn't know you existed." The guilt felt heavier than the steering wheel. But the producer's call came just in time. They said Emily wanted answers. And deep down, Thomas wanted forgiveness for something he hadn't even done, for being absent without knowing he was supposed to be there. He thought about his own mother. She'd passed 2 years ago, never knowing she might have had a granddaughter. He remembered her words when his last relationship ended. "Tommy, don't let regret be the thing that defines your life." And yet, here he was, built entirely from regret. Meanwhile, on stage, the energy had shifted. Emily's mother had just confessed she'd hidden the truth. Robert, the man who raised her, sat frozen. The shock had drained the color from his face. And Dr. Phill was buying time, trying to ground everyone before the next segment. In the control booth, the producer's earpiece buzzed. "He's ready. Bring him to holding position." 2 security guards gently guided Thomas down the hallway. Each step felt like walking toward the unknown. Through the open doorway, he could see the edge of the stage lights spilling across the floor. He could hear Dr. Phil's voice, calm and steady. "Emily, sometimes the truth comes to light when you least expect it, but it's up to you what you do with it." Thomas stopped behind the curtain, out of sight but close enough to hear her voice, trembling, angry, fragile. "I just want to know who he is," she said. Something in that tone pierced him. The producer whispered, "We're about to bring you out. Are you ready?" He swallowed hard. "No," he said honestly, "but I'll go anyway." Inside the studio, Emily wiped her eyes. Robert shifted, looking toward Dr. Phill, who gave a subtle nod to his staff. Behind the curtain, Thomas stood straighter. The lights dimmed slightly. The audience fell silent. The producer raised 3 fingers. 2. 1. Dr. Phill turned to Emily. "There's someone here who may have the answers you're looking for." Emily blinked, confused. "Someone here?" The audience murmured. Robert's head snapped toward the entryway. And then the door opened. Thomas stepped into the light. The audience gasped, that collective intake of breath that fills every corner of the room. He walked slowly, eyes locked on Emily. For a moment, it was as if time itself held still. Emily's lips parted. She whispered to herself, "Who is that?" Dr. Phill said quietly, "Emily, this is Thomas Hall." The name hit like a wave. Her mother's sobs filled the silence. Emily stared at the man in front of her, his eyes the same pale blue as her own. The resemblance was undeniable, haunting. Thomas spoke first, voice trembling. "I didn't know about you, Emily. If I had, I swear I would have been there." She didn't respond. The audience stayed frozen. Even Dr. Phill looked momentarily speechless. In that second, the DNA results weren't just words on a page anymore. They were standing right there, breathing, shaking alive. Emily's world spun. The lie she'd lived was unraveling in real time. And as the lights caught her face, you could see it. That split second where anger turned into disbelief, and disbelief began to crack into something softer. A quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, the truth wasn't here to destroy her. But then again, it might. What would you do if the man you'd been searching for suddenly walked into the room, and he looked just like you? The studio went so quiet you could hear the buzz of the lights overhead. Thomas stood under the glare, his hands trembling slightly as he looked at the daughter he never knew he had. Emily's mother covered her face. Robert sat rigid, like a man trying to stay upright while the ground beneath him split open. Dr. Phill leaned forward, his voice slow, deliberate, the tone he only used when the truth was about to drop like a hammer. "Thomas," he began, "we've reviewed both of your DNA results, and what I'm holding right here," he raised the paper slightly, "will settle this once and for all." Emily gripped the edge of her chair, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Dr. Phill unfolded the document and scanned it. The audience leaned in. Cameras zoomed. The control booth went silent. He read, "Probability of paternity 99.97%. The words hit like a lightning strike. Thomas's lips parted, but no sound came out. Robert's shoulders collapsed. Emily blinked, staring down at the floor as if the world itself had cracked open beneath her feet. Then came the sound no one expected, her mother's sobbing voice. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The crowd gasped. Dr. Phill held up a hand gently. "Ma'am, you've carried this for a long time. Tell us why." She looked up, mascara streaking down her face. "I lied because I thought I was protecting her. Thomas, he didn't know. I left before I could tell him. I thought Robert could give her a better life, a stable home. I didn't want her growing up around the chaos." Her voice cracked. "I told myself it didn't matter. That love was enough." Emily looked at her mother, the woman she trusted more than anyone, and all she could say was, "You stole my truth." That line cut through the studio like a blade. Thomas took a step forward. "She's right," he said softly. "You took that choice away from both of us." Robert finally spoke, voice broken. "Don't you dare talk to her like that." He stood, shaking. "I raised her. I stayed when you left." For a moment, it wasn't a TV show anymore. It was a battlefield. Love, guilt, and anger colliding under the same lights. Dr. Phill intervened. His voice was calm but firm. "Robert, you've been her father in every way that counts. But this doesn't erase what's true. This is not about replacing love. It's about revealing it." Emily looked between the two men, the one who had raised her and the one who shared her eyes. Both of them, in their own way, had been robbed by the same secret. Her voice was barely a whisper. "So what do I do now?" Dr. Phill turned to her. "You take a breath," he said gently. "You give yourself time to feel what's real. Because right now, your heart is catching up to a truth your mind just met." The crowd was motionless. It wasn't drama anymore. It was raw humanity. Thomas reached into his pocket and unfolded that same photograph, the one from 1996. He held it out. "Your mom didn't lie about everything," he said. "She told me you had my eyes." Emily hesitated, then took the photo. Her hand shook. The image showed her mother, younger, smiling, and that same newborn wrapped in a green blanket. Her breath caught. "That's me." Her mother nodded weakly. "You were only 2 days old." The camera zoomed in on Emily's face. Tears, disbelief, something like grief, but deeper. Dr. Phill looked around, his voice heavy with meaning. "There's a lot of pain here, but there's also something else, the chance to start over. Secrets destroy families, but truth, no matter how painful, gives us the power to rebuild." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Emily stood, slowly, her hand still holding the photo. "I can't do this right now," she whispered. "I need a minute." She turned and walked off the stage. The audience didn't clap. No one moved. Even Dr. Phill sat back, quietly, letting the moment breathe. Off camera, a producer whispered, "She's heading to the dressing room." Dr. Phill nodded. "Let her go. Some reunions need silence first." The shot faded on Thomas staring after her. Eyes glistening, lips pressed tight. The truth had shattered everything they knew. But maybe, just maybe, it had also opened a door. Sometimes, the truth doesn't scream. It just sits in the room and changes everything. The camera stopped rolling, but the story didn't. Offstage, down a narrow hallway lined with heavy curtains and cables, Emily sat alone in the dressing room. The silence felt foreign, heavy, echoing with everything she had just heard. The door was slightly open. A red "Do Not Disturb" light glowed outside, yet footsteps hesitated near the threshold. Then came a soft knock. "Emily," a man's voice said quietly. It wasn't Dr. Phill. It was him, Thomas. She hesitated before answering. "Come in." The door creaked open, and Thomas stepped inside, still in the same gray jacket from a stage. He looked older under the softer light, the kind of older that comes from sleepless nights and too many regrets. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other, two people bound by truth, but separated by 28 silent years. Finally, Emily broke the silence. Why didn't you know? Her voice wasn't angry anymore, just tired. He sighed. Because your mom never told me. I knew her for a few months back in '96. Then one day, she was gone. I thought she just moved on. He pulled something from his jacket, the same old photograph he'd shown on stage. A woman smiling, holding a baby in a green hospital blanket. I kept this because I thought she was the one that got away, he said. Turns out, she took more than my heart when she left. Emily looked at the picture, then at him. Her breath trembled. That's me. He nodded slowly. Yeah, that's you. The only thing I didn't know I'd been missing my whole life. A tear slid down her cheek. It feels like my whole world just flipped upside down. My mom lied. My dad, he's not really my dad. And now you're here. I don't even know what to feel. Thomas sat down across from her, careful not to crowd her. You don't have to feel everything right now, he said softly. You don't even have to forgive anybody yet. Just breathe. We got time now, the kind I should have given you years ago. She looked up, her eyes glistening. Do you have kids? He nodded. 2 boys. Teenagers. They're good kids, but none of them have your eyes. That line hit her harder than she expected. She smiled faintly, through tears. You noticed that? I noticed everything, he said. Every tiny piece of you that reminds me what could have been. Outside, faint studio chatter returned as producers prepared the next segment. But inside that small room, time seemed to slow. Dr. Phill knocked gently and peeked in. Mind if I step in for a second? Thomas stood, giving him a respectful nod. Dr. Phill looked between them, a quiet father, a fragile daughter, and said, You two just lived something people spend decades avoiding. Most folks would rather die with a lie than face it on live TV. But you did it. Both of you. Emily smiled weakly. It doesn't feel brave. It just feels broken. He nodded. That's where healing starts. Not in the big moments, in the quiet after. Thomas looked at Emily. She's stronger than she thinks. Dr. Phill smiled. That's what truth does. It breaks you before it builds you. There was a pause. Emily looked at the floor. I don't want this aired, she said suddenly. Not the part backstage. Not this. Dr. Phill nodded immediately. Then it won't be. Some reunions belong to the world. Some belong only to the people who live them. She exhaled in relief. Thank you. As Dr. Phill left, Thomas remained at the doorway. Can I see you again? He asked softly. Not as a guest, just as a father. Emily hesitated. The word father felt heavy, unfamiliar, yet somehow right. Maybe, she said, but not today. He smiled gently. That's enough for me. He turned to go, but she called out, Thomas? He stopped. Thank you for showing up. His eyes softened. I'll never stop again. The door clicked shut behind him. Emily sat alone, clutching that photo, realizing something profound. Truth didn't always bring peace right away. Sometimes, it just gave you a reason to start over. Weeks later, audiences would still talk about that episode. The one where Dr. Phill froze mid-show, where the DNA envelope changed everything. But what they didn't see was this moment, the quiet one behind the cameras, where forgiveness began in whispers, not applause. Because some stories don't end with shock. They end with healing. And somewhere, a letter was already being written, one that would close the circle once and for all. What would you say in a letter to the person who gave you your truth back? It had been 6 months since that day on the Dr. Phill stage. The headlines had faded. The cameras had moved on. But for Emily, the story didn't end when the credits rolled. It was only beginning. Dr. Phill sat in his office one quiet afternoon when an envelope arrived. Cream-colored paper. No return address. Just 2 words written neatly in blue ink for Dr. Phill. He opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter, long, folded 3 times, written in a careful hand. At the top, a single line, You probably don't remember me, but you changed my life. He began to read. Dear Dr. Phill, it's Emily, the girl with the DNA test, the one whose whole life unraveled on your stage. I've been wanting to write to you for a while, but I needed time to understand what really happened and what it meant. I used to think that day destroyed me, but now I see it didn't. It exposed me, the real me, under all the lies I was raised on. Dr. Phill paused, the weight of the words settling in. He turned the page. After the show, I kept my distance from everyone for a while. My mom, my dad, even Thomas. I didn't know how to face anyone. Every word felt too fragile. Every look too full of guilt. But then one afternoon, I got a message from Thomas. Just a single line. "I'm at the park where you used to feed the ducks as a kid. Want to walk?" I almost deleted it. But something inside me, maybe curiosity, maybe courage, told me to go. When I got there, he was waiting on a bench, holding 2 cups of coffee. We didn't talk about the show. We didn't talk about the past. We just walked. And for the first time, it didn't feel like meeting a stranger. It felt like remembering someone I'd always known. He told me stories about his mother, how she always wanted a daughter. He said he wished she'd lived long enough to meet me. I didn't know what to say, so I just told him I was glad he came back anyway. Dr. Phill exhaled, eyes softening. The next paragraph was underlined. "Robert, my dad, still comes over for dinner every Sunday. He told me once that love isn't DNA, it's showing up. And he's never stopped showing up. My mom's in therapy now. She's learning to forgive herself. I thought I'd never forgive her, but I did. Because she was right about one thing. She wanted to protect me. She just went about it the wrong way." The letter's tone changed, gentler now. "I've learned that truth isn't meant to destroy families. It's meant to rebuild them. It's just that sometimes you have to break everything open first. You told me something that day I'll never forget. Secrets destroy families, but truth gives them a chance to heal. You were right. Now I have 2 fathers, one who raised me and one who found me. I love them both differently, but fully." Dr. Phill smiled faintly. He turned to the final lines, written in slightly shakier handwriting. "Thank you for helping me face what was real, for giving me the courage to stop hiding behind someone else's version of my story. You taught me that blood may define where we come from, but love defines where we belong. Sincerely, Emily Hall." He folded the letter slowly, almost reverently. For a long moment, he sat in silence, reflecting on the thousands of guests he'd met, the stories of pain, of lies, of hope. But this one was different. He looked straight into the camera during the next episode taping, his tone softer than usual. "Some stories don't end with applause," he said. "They end quietly, in forgiveness. Emily's story reminds us that truth, no matter how painful, is never our enemy. It's the path back to who we really are." The camera zoomed in slightly. His voice steadied. "Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free, it rebuilds you." Fade to black. The sound of gentle piano music carries over the final screen. What part of your life deserves the truth today? If this story touched you, share it with someone who's still living with unanswered questions. Sometimes, the truth we fear most is the one that can heal us the deepest. Don't hide from it. Face it, because your story might be the next one that brings someone home.